Hello, and welcome back to DataX. My name is Vicki Limbrunsko with the Argyle Group, and I will be your MC for this session. Just a couple of notes before we start the panel discussion. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Sponsors' booths are accessible from the main page for this event. And to ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A box on your screen. Now I'm excited to introduce our speakers, Vinod Uniyal, Chief Technology Officer, Talent Development at IBM Talent and Transformation Global Services, and Trish Uhl, Founder, Talent and Learning Analytics Leadership Forum, Owls Ledge LLC. We are so pleased to have Trish and Vinod join us for this conversation titled Using Data and AI Intelligent Workflows Across the Talent Spectrum. Trish and Vinod, over to you.
Hey, thanks so much, Vicki. Thanks for that introduction. And Vinod, welcome. Thanks so much. I am so excited about this conversation and really talking about, how do we get into data science for talent? And I think maybe that's the best place to start because this seems to be a novel area of exploration in the realm of data science and artificial intelligence is how do we begin to start to know our people and our talent as well as it is that we know other stakeholders like our customers. So, Vinod, what is talent transformation and what is it that you're working on?
Sure. Thank you so much, Trish. I'm very excited to be here. And it's a very good question to start with. So my focus is on talent and transformation, everything talent. So I start with that question. If the organization believes that the talent is their most critical asset, then they need to know, what's happening with their talent, right? And I would put skills at the center of this discussion. So you need to understand what skills do you have, right? And this is one of the factors that has come out in one of the studies that we have done. We call it IBB studies. Almost 41% of the CEOs say that they don't know what skills they have and whether they have skills to achieve the business objectives that they want to achieve. So I would always start with that question and then look at understanding your talent and building talent agility so that we are able to address the business challenges that we have.
Yeah, and that, it fascinates me because one of the conversations that we had in prepping for today was talking about the whole idea of workforce planning. And especially in given market conditions, right? So, as the world has definitely changed these past few months with all of these different crises that have been happening, one of the things that we have found is that organizations, number one, didn't necessarily know who their essential workforce was. And number two, not necessarily sure as we've had to pivot business models, operating models, service and product delivery models, like exactly who are the people that we need in order to be able to move the business forward in this new environment. So can you tell us a little bit about your perspective on that whole idea of skills and people and workforce planning? And I want to make sure early in this conversation that people know that your lens has very much been focused on both internal to the organization whom you work for, as well as providing these tools and these lenses towards helping clients as well. So you've had exposure to a number of different types of organizations in a bunch of different industries. So tell us about workforce planning and about people and skills and how that kind of plays together and where we're at in today's environment.
Definitely, Trish. I think that's a great question. And as you mentioned, yes, so I work for a very large organization and I also work with a lot of customers who are facing similar challenges, right? So in order to understand the talent that you have, you need to have that pulse of your talent, right? So the way I look at it is, again, as I said, keeping skills at the center. So there are 3 steps, very simple, the way I want to explain it. You must understand the skills that you have. You also then should understand the skills that you need in future, right? In order to reach your business objectives, achieve your business strategy and all that. And once you understand what you have, you know what you need in future, then you should take steps to close that skills gap, right? And develop the skills for future. So this is a simple 3-step process, but I would put 3 different lenses on this process or 3 steps. One is the individual lens, which is from an individual employee perspective, what skills do I have? What skills do I need in future? And how do I close that gap? The second lens is the teams or groups. Again, the same three questions: understand the skills that you have, what you need, and how do you close that gap. And the third lens is the macro lens, which is, so from micro, now we are moving to macro. At an aggregate level, what are the skills that we have in the organization? Are these aligned to the business objectives that we want to achieve? And what are the skills that we need in future, and that will be aligned to your business strategy and the objectives? And then at an aggregate level, how you can manage your workforce in order to nudge them towards the skills that you need in future, right? So that's the strategic workforce planning perspective. And when I think about the strategic workforce planning, I would, have those traditional 7 Bs in place. So you can have your strategies, which is talent acquisition. So you can buy skills from outside, right? That is recruitment. You can also borrow skills from outside. So that is, hiring contingent workers. You can also bind the skills that you already have. You can build the skills, which is talent development, right? Developing the skills in-house. You can also bounce the skills. So the skills that you don't need, make those exits. But at the same time, now I would add the bots also in the equation. So it is not only human resources, but also the bots, which you can achieve through robotic process automation and AI, and put that into your spectrum, when you're thinking about the workforce. So that's the digital workforce also comes into the picture. So that is the way I look at, the overall strategic workforce planning. And if you can look at all these aspects, we can talk about the strategies in which you can actually create a agile workforce, which is able to address the business challenges, which keep on coming to you in this VUCA world, as I, like to say that.
Absolutely, that right. In this VUCA world, as it continues to evolve, and it has gotten VUCA for sure. There's no doubt about that. And so traditionally, from a talent standpoint, so let me see if I can just repeat some of that back to you again. So we have kind of the life cycle of an employee, if you will, from the time that someone gets recruited and hired and joins the organization to the time that somebody exits the organization through a number of different means of attrition. So we've got in the beginning is the talent acquisition or the recruiting process. In the middle, we have the talent development process. So we think about talent development as what are the skills that people need in order to be able to do their current job better today? What are the skills and capabilities that people need to develop over a period of time to be able to do a future job better? Or when it is that an organization has to pivot, how do we upskill or reskill or new skill a workforce in order to be able to move in a particular, to enable the organization in a particular direction? And we know that those first two pieces, the talent recruiting, the talent acquisition, and talent development play into that end game, which is oftentimes retention, right? How do we keep some of our best people, right, that have the organizational knowledge and the skills and the capabilities that we need? And so if I'm following you correctly in this conversation, you look at that as not only a continuum, but a continuum that is enabled by data, and not only data about and for the humans, but then also some of these synthetic entities that we have that are joining our workforce as well. Would that be fairly accurate?
That's a very good description, Trish. And now I would introduce a new concept here, which is intelligent workflows, right? So we already talked about the talent. We already talked about the digital workforce. Now, if you throw in the exponential technologies that we currently have available, AI being one, big data, 5G, quantum, blockchain. So all these technologies combined with talent, processes, and reimagining the workflows that you have present us an opportunity to really look at the workflows and create end-to-end workflows which are really frictionless and work from, for the entire employee life cycle, from end to end. So that's where we can actually leverage these technologies and use data in and out to make those decisions, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples there. So just think about a very simple use case of resetting a password, right? I mean, that has been a problem in organizations for a very long time. Today we can do self-service of resetting the passwords, right? But at the same time, you think about it, can we actually utilize AI to see what kind of requests are we getting? Are we getting same request again and again from somebody? Is it something, why this person is requesting again and again? Is there something, going on there? Do we have to look at the security aspects and all that? So that's where AI comes into picture, right? And so that's an example of intelligent workflow. I can give you a couple of other examples where we can actually augment the human beings to enable them to make decisions better. So one of the good examples that I can think of is in learning environment, we have, like in my company, we kind of consume 27 million hours of learning every year, right? So that's a lot of learning. We issue almost we have issued 3 million badges, digital badges so far, right? So think about that kind of scale. Now, when the employees are continuously learning at an average of 77 hours per year, the kind of feedback that they are giving is enormous, right? And that feedback is mostly in terms of, it is text, it is unstructured data. How do you make sense of that data, right? So we have seen examples where we use AI to sift through that data and bring out the most commonly occurring problems, where we can now employ the service desk to proactively look at those problems and solve those problems in order to give excellent user experience or learner experience. So that is one example which I really think of how we actually augment the human beings to use AI to augment the human beings and provide excellent frictionless experiences for the employees.
Yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense. And so going back for a moment, so talking about the different technologies, so getting into quantum, getting into 5G, into blockchain, into Internet of Things, getting into various flavors of artificial intelligence, if you will, but being able to then again bring those technologies together. We're seeing convergence, right? Such as the new technology stack within the enterprise is bringing these technologies together to be able to put forward cognitive computing, right? And really be able to build organizations that are built off of intelligence and not just information processing. So this is, when we start talking about digital transformation, I mean, ultimately, this is the goal of any organization, is to basically re-architect the technology stack with some combination of these technologies to be able to do these types of things. Is that, I'm gonna pause there and just check in with you. Does that sound accurate so far? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement, Trish. And I think when I think about digital transformation, for me, it is all about, of course, having digital literacy in your talent, the workforce that you have, so that we are actually able to find those use cases where we can really leverage these technologies and have a business impact, right? So, and talent actually can play a big role there, not only in terms of developing those skills, digital skills, but also implementing and leveraging these technologies to make the use of the data that we have. So, I mean, I always say this, that in talent function, we have enormous amount of data available to us. And we are not making enough use of it, right? So as we start utilizing that data, bringing it in together, we can actually find so many insights from that data. And one of the examples that I like to talk about is, it's not only the talent data, but the kind of data that all of us are generating day in, day out as we are working, right? And I would call it the digital footprint. So if you are working on projects, we are delivering something, we are creating some work products, right? And similarly, if we are going through our performance discussions, there is something there. We are blogging on something, we are, uploading some documents that we have created. So all these kind of digital footprints that we generate in our organizations, if we can harness that data, that itself can be used for one of the important questions that we earlier, talked about. How do I understand the skills that I have in my organization? This digital footprint is the gold mine that you can use AI to find out the skills that you have at an individual level, at the team level, and at the organization level. And that's where everything can start. I would call it the skills inference, and that is one of the key components which you can start with by understanding the skills you have, and AI can definitely help there because the kind of scale that we are talking about, right? I mean, it is enormous amount of data that you have available with you.
Yeah, those are excellent points. And I think, so going back to kind of that use case that you were talking about a moment ago with the passwords, and then I really want to dig into the skills inference as well and how it is that you're extracting that from the data set. Because to your point, it's not just coming from people data, it's coming from data that people, the digital footprints that we leave in the day-to-day work and the data that we generated just in the daily activities that we do. But going back to, again, just to kind of make this really concrete for folks, and that is like the whole idea of the password, right? So again, using artificial intelligence and data to be able to sense that there's sort of this anomaly of this activity going on, right? Like somebody is repeatedly resetting a password, or many somebodies are repeatedly resetting a password, and being able to then detect and determine, to infer, is that a threat, right? Is somebody trying to, or something trying to get into something that it shouldn't have access to? Or is that really some kind of a human problem? And it seems to be a human problem at scale where, for whatever reason, a lot of people suddenly don't remember their passwords into a particular system or into a particular opportunity. So you've got these feedback loops that are actually embedded within the data set that are being picked up with these artificial intelligence algorithms that then can be used in order to, number one, shut a threat down if that's what is happening, or number two, to provide positive impact back to people. Because if people are forgetting their passwords and not able to access systems, then we can sort of extrapolate that out. They're probably not able to get their work done, and that frustrates all of us. So there's an immediacy of being able to provide this kind of visibility and this kind of service to people in that moment of need as it is that they're trying to work. But then there's also this ability of being able to detect and to sense within the data using artificial intelligence skills that people maybe need beyond password resetting capabilities, but skills that people have and skills that people maybe need in order to be able to move in a different direction or to perform well in a current job or to develop themselves along a particular career path. And so you mentioned about being able to use artificial intelligence and inference in order to be able to infer the skills, which is different than what we used to do or what we have done in the past, which is try and manually create a skills taxonomy. So how are you extracting or divining from the data the types of skills that an organization already has? Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Definitely. And that's a very good point to start with, Trish. So I think let me just go back to the framework that I had, started with, which was understanding the skills that we have and then understanding the skills that we need in future, right? So when I talked about skills inference, that's the first step of understanding the skills that we have in the organization, right? Now, based on the skills inference, we can actually look at the digital footprint and bring those insights from that digital footprint. So we can not only understand the skills that people have, but also the level of skills that the people have. So that's the proficiency of skills, right? Now, instead of trying to define all the skills upfront, if you use AI, you will be able to find new skills that are, getting generated or created in your organization, which otherwise you will not be able to find out, right? And you can also use AI to help the employees understand the skills that they have and allow them to provide their feedback on that, right? So it could be employee feedback, it could be manager feedback to confirm that. But at a scale, it is AI which actually helps you understand the skills that you are exhibiting through the work that you are doing in your organization. Now, the other use case that I see of utilizing AI here is in terms of attracting the right talent, right? So when you're attracting the talent, in the traditional ways, you are actually expecting them to look for jobs which are posted and then find the jobs which are right for them and apply to those jobs, right? I mean, that's a traditional way, which is very manual, doesn't work that way, doesn't work very effectively. But what I've seen is that if you allow the candidates to just upload their CV or resume to the website and let the AI find the right match for them, that is much, much better, because AI is able to infer the skills from the document that has been submitted and match it with all the available jobs. Now, what happens in this case is AI is able to recommend the jobs which the candidate would not have otherwise thought of, because of whatever reasons, right? Because of they don't have work experience working in such, enormous organizations, or they come from a background where they have not been exposed to it. So it actually helps with diversity and inclusion as well, because we are allowing the AI algorithms to do that matching for us, right? So that's one example. Now the second example is, once you have the employees in your organization, they are inside the organization. Now we need to continually help them upskill to do their current job better, and then reskill them as things change, which is changing very rapidly. The half life of skills is dwindling down, so we need to do that very rapidly. Now again, in that case where we are helping the employees find opportunities within the company, this matching engine that I was just talking about again comes into play. So you are able to recommend internal job positions to the employees which are based on the skills, adjacent skills that they have. And again, it's the same case. They may not even think about those departments, which need their skills. So that's the way I've seen, good usage of AI, and also helping with diversity and inclusion. Now, let me just expand a little bit on that, because I kind of skipped that portion of the employee life cycle. So we talked about attraction, we talked about getting the employees onboarded, but the way I think about the end-to-end life cycle of the employee is the overall internal mobility use case. So you have the employees in the organization. We help them own their own career, right? So let them make their decisions about what they want to do next in the career. And the way we understood the skills that we need for the organization in future, the strategic skills that we need, we should transparently communicate those skills to the employees, so that they know these are the strategic skills, strategic roles, jobs that the organization need, and they know it very clearly. It is transparent to everybody, and that kinds of creates that pull versus the push that you were doing earlier. Now once that pull happens, employees are able to discover those skills and roles, and then get personalized recommendations for digital learning, which will help them build those skills. But not only digital skills, but also other forms of learning, which are social learning, experiential learning, so peer-to-peer learning, working on certain ad hoc projects, and then build those skills, and then you get those job recommendations which allow you to move internally within the organizations. So that's the kind of entire end-to-end internal mobility life cycle that I think about.
Yeah, and I love that too, because again, it really kind of turns tradition on its head, right? It used to be that you came into an organization, you probably came in under a particular role, and then there was a set career path, and basically an organization would guide you, right? So somebody would pop up one day and say, hey, you're, I'm making it up, a project manager, and now you want to, or a project coordinator, and now you want to become a project manager, and then become a senior project manager, and maybe get into engagement management, and so on and so forth. And you had a human, probably, or a team of humans, like human resources, that would basically define the career paths for people, and you would just go along this set path. And what we've seen actually with the U.S. Department of Labor is that we don't have career ladders as much anymore, or we have, in addition to, career lattices, right? So people that might move to a tangential position or move completely into a different category within the organization because they have the propensity for it, the interest for it, or motivated to move in that particular direction. And again, it goes back to organizations being able to leverage people and the talent that an organization currently has, because there's a cost associated with that, right? I mean, how do you, there are some statistics that I can think of, to replace somebody is like a percentage of salary, right?
Yeah. So the statistics from Department of Labor says that it is almost one third of the cost, one third of the salary that you would require to invest in order to replace somebody. So let's say the average salary is, let's say, $75,000, then you're spending $25,000 to replace somebody. So if you think about that case, and let's say if you have 22% attrition in an organization, which is, let's say, 80,000 people organization, if you can reduce that 22% attrition to 10%, you are actually saving $200 million every year just by reducing that attrition. And the internal mobility that I was talking about. So if you can create that culture of continuous learning, culture of continuous skilling, and create that culture where the employees own their career, that would create inspired employees, engaged employees, and in turn help with the retention. So instead of always looking at outside to find new talent, you should actually look at internally and make that target for yourself that we are going to increase our internal recruitment by whatever percentage works for you. But I think that's a very, very good source to look at rather than always look outside. And specifically, it is true in terms of the new skills that we all are after, right? So if it is data science skills or artificial intelligence skills or digital transformation skills, there are not that many people available, right? So it's just better that we start developing those skills internally, and it is only possible when we have this entire cultural change, which actually creates that culture of continuous learning and employees owning their career and reskilling themselves all the time.
And can be enabled by this kind of automation, right? So again, going back to leveraging artificial intelligence and data in order to, in this case, discoverability, right? So having the machine actually help people identify with other potential career paths or career opportunities that, to your point, they may not have considered before because it wasn't traditional, or they were never exposed to it, or didn't even know that they had a propensity for it. And then also, like you were saying, with so value creation. So as data scientists and people working in this particular field and looking for meaningful work and things to really put into practice that delivers positive people impact and can help an organization, again, be successful, and something that, highly visible right now with executive leadership, is being able to help with these talent questions. So like you were talking about, some of these types of skills that we need for people to have are hard to get, especially in certain populations in certain parts of the world. And then also the whole idea of, it's not just the cost of replacing somebody in an organization if somebody were to leave, so that retention piece really matters. But it's also, they walk out with organizational knowledge and experience, and they were probably tapped into and built an internal network. So there's an awful lot to lose, even in this particular climate, with some of your employees, with some employees walking out the door. So being able to, again, use data and artificial intelligence to help individuals, to help teams, and to help the organization at large across that entire talent spectrum is really critical right now.
Absolutely, Trish. And I think, let me just explain a little bit more on that front, how we can actually use data to help employees plan their career using AI, right? So I have seen use cases where we have chatbots, sort of career coach, where you can, talk to the chatbot in the natural language and get recommendations on what are the possible career paths that you can explore. You can also understand how many people before you in roles in similar roles as yours have moved to this position, that position, and all that, right? So that kind of gives you an indication. So you can plan that path and get the recommendations how to build those skills through digital learning, social learning, experiential learning, get the coaching from your peers to build those skills and then move into those paths. The other thing I wanted to say on that front is, so as you said, it is retaining that organization knowledge, right? If you are actually helping employees develop those skills and all that. The other thing I would like to say is that we have to create this end-to-end workflows, right? So when we think about recruitment as a function, we also have to think about the internal recruitment as part of our strategic workforce planning strategy, right? So it shouldn't be the
Right.
case that as soon as you have a new job position open, you fire a requisition and you're just going out instead of looking at what you already have in the organization, right? So it has to become integrated so that your talent acquisition is actually working with talent development and working in tandem to create an overall strategic workforce planning strategy and looking at the workforce as a whole rather than the silos that currently exist in many of the organizations today.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, that's another thing. Once the job posting goes up and talent acquisition is ready for recruiting, the time to close is a critical metric on their part for the recruiters. And it's not so easy. It's not like popping down to the grocery store and necessarily buying fruit. I mean, some of these things take time in order to be able to find the right person or even to be able to find a population to tap into for those particular types of skills. So having this kind of visibility is really critical. And one of the things that you've repeated a couple of times now too that I want to bring us back to, because you were talking about like internal to your organization, it's 27 million hours of learning, but that's not formal training. We're not talking about bringing people into virtual instructor led or bringing people, certainly at this point in time, into classroom. That's 27 million different types of learning opportunities from some of these different types of learning modalities that you were talking about before, like experiential, like peer-to-peer, some of the rotational kind of stuff. Can you explain a little bit about social learning and experiential learning and how that's different and kind of where the 27 million kind of comes from?
Definitely. So, as I've been saying, this is all about creating that culture of continuous learning where everybody is motivated to learn those new skills, all the time. And in order to do that, you have to really, really make it easy for the employees, the learners, to find and discover those learning opportunities, right? The way we do it today, we call them learning experience platforms, which actually allow for all the different learning sources, learning management systems, content sources to bring together and create a kind of, I would say, Netflix-like experience, which is consumer grade and also has super personalization built into it. Again, where AI comes into play, and that creates kind of an engagement where you are continuously engaged because the learning that is getting recommended to you is really, really personalized. It is something that matches with the skills that you want to build, the roles that you want to go into, and people like you are liking, similar to what happens on Amazon or Netflix. Now, just consuming digital learning doesn't help, or formal learning doesn't help. You also need help with other people who have been on that path. So that's where we have a peer-to-peer coaching platform which can allow the matching of the people who want coaching and the people who want to give coaching, right? That's one element. The other element is, okay, you've learned something, how do you practice it, right? You need those opportunities where you can practice those skills and build those skills. And that's where, again, another matching engine comes into play, which matches the ad hoc projects to the talent which is wanting to practice those skills. So you can actually crowdsource the talent within your organization by using these kind of platforms, and I would call them the talent marketplace, which really allows you to sort of create that gig economy within your organization, and you are able to provide all these different opportunities of digital learning, peer-to-peer coachings, experiential learning. We're able to practice those skills, and then then match you with the formal job opportunities which comes next, and then you can internally move into a different permanent role, so to say.
And you actually have a very personal story on this. I mean, you've actually experienced this yourself within the organization. Would you mind sharing this a bit? Because I think it's so critical to where we are in taking control of our career opportunities. And as a data scientist and as somebody who's working in this particular realm, this isn't where you started. So would you mind telling us a bit about your background and how this has worked for you?
Definitely, Trish. I think that's a story which is very personal to me, but I enjoy sharing it with others because I mean, I've lived this, So I have been into IT services for a very long time. I mean, I used to be a programmer a long time back. I was managing large IT outsourcing accounts where I was responsible for the infrastructure services as well as the application managed services, managing several hundreds of people out there. But about 4 years back or so, I kind of heard the executives, and I was also reading outside words. So there was a lot of talk about data science being the sexiest job of 21st century, and AI and all these things coming into play. But for me, the eureka moment was when I learned that instead of doing the logical programming using if then else kind of logic, you can actually use the data, understand the patterns from that data, and bring insights from that, without having to do that kind of programming. That was the eureka moment which kind of made me really deep dive into data science, big data, artificial intelligence, cloud at that time. And I was actually able to out of my curiosity, read whatever I could lay my hands on. And then after, I would say, about 6 months or so, I got opportunities to actually work on a real project, which happened to be in talent and transformation. And it was utilizing AI to, work with the content and all that thing. So that's kind of got me started. And yeah, I mean, it's exactly the story that I'm talking about. So this is where, you take control of your career. You are curious, you are able to find discover those places where you can build those skills, and you get this opportunity. So the organization is actually enabling you to discover those opportunities and build those new skills which are actually relevant for the organization. So this is exactly what happened to me, and yeah, happy to share that story with you.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that, because again, I think it goes into all three of those levels, right? Like going from the micro where you're talking about you as the individual, and then there was a team that actually, so after you had put in this personal investment and this self-directed learning and something that you felt very passionate about, still feel very passionate about, you were finally able to find, beyond trolling around on GitHub and being able to do, some practice, which is great, which is where all of us start, right? We try and get our hands dirty with being able to put our hands on, being able to practice and follow somebody else's model and somebody else's work, to then finding a team that could really leverage these new skills and capabilities that you had self-developed. And now it's really fascinating to me that it's now serving the organization with your leadership in being able to build out these types of opportunities and leveraging those same very tools in artificial intelligence and in data to be able to do this for others throughout your organization, and of course with other organizations with whom you work. So that's really exciting kind of stuff. And I think in looking at an event like what's going on this week with DataX, as many of us have been there before, been in that very spot before, where we hear about something, we get excited about something, we go to dive in, we start to really explore it, we invest an awful lot of time in being able to try and build our skills or capabilities in a particular area, such as a talent in and of itself within, modern times, right, within contemporary work. And then we're looking for an opportunity to be able to put it into meaningful practice, to be able to deliver value to others. Are there any, before we turn it over to Q&A with the audience here, with the attendees, anything to add to that for people in this particular field and really looking at their own, taking control and really having that continuous learning and that growth mindset themselves? What tips for them as we move to Q&A?
Yeah, so really, I think on that front, I would just say that learning and skilling is almost democratized today. As long as you have a good internet connection, wherever you are sitting in the world, you have the ability to build new skills. And this is exactly what I had done 4 years back. And actually, I've done it multiple times in my career. But in today's world, I feel much more empowered and confident that it is, actually possible because of the technology that we have available, right? So we can find the learning easily. We can find the people very easily today because of the collaborative technologies that we have available. So I would say just take charge and get started.
I love it. I love that. And again, that this is an area of exploration for folks working in data science, is that this is a pretty nascent kind of field of how do we take some of these tools, technologies, artificial intelligence, and data and this lens and make it more internal focus and being able to serve our employees around their career skill development and definitely the employee experience. Vinod, this is awesome. And I'd love to hear what kind of questions we've gotten from the Q&A from the attendees. Vicky, what do you have for Vinod?
Thank you so much, both of you, for that excellent presentation. And as a reminder to audience members, you can enter your questions into the Q&A box on the screen, and we're going to review some of the questions that did come in during the discussion. The first question is, can you talk a little bit about how we can steer away from bias issues when using AI for recruiting?
Definitely. I think that's a very, very good question. And in fact, I feel it other way. When it is only human beings involved in the decision making, we all are inherently biased, right? So because of whatever reasons, we have our own biases and we tend to make decisions that way. But when we use data and AI to make these decisions, we actually have an opportunity to detect the biases and remove those biases from the decision making, right? So, and then in recruiting, as you can think of it, instead of having the humans make those decisions to understand the skills the person has, what fitment that the person would have for a particular job, and they might make those decisions based on the way a person looks, the way the person sounds, or where he is from, and this and that. So all these biases are inherent. But if you use AI and find the insights from that data, you can easily work towards removing the biases from those decision making. So I'm not going to say that it's an easy thing to do, but there are tools available to detect bias and remove bias. And in fact, the company that I work for has multiple tools which help you explain the decisions that the AI algorithms are making. So you can, always go into those tools and understand why the AI made this decision to detect, bias in the decision making process.
And I think we should expect to have to do that. I think that we should expect these algorithms to not only reflect, but to amplify the human bias that's already inherent in human systems. I mean, to your point, it's not that the machines woke up one day and decided to put together these biases. The machines are, the data is only reflecting what it is that we humans have actually kind of baked into the data. And to your point, this gives us an opportunity to be able to vet those things out. It actually illuminates it, but we should actually expect it as part of our process. Yeah.
We have one more question.
Good question, Vicky.
We're just about out of time, so it's going to have to be a quick one, unfortunately. Any tips for gaining buy-in from senior management on investing more in AI for talent management and hiring? So getting buy-in.
Okay, that's a great question, and I deal with that question almost daily when I'm talking to my clients. So the way I look at it is just very, very differently. So it's not about cost savings or the expenses that you make in creating a culture of continuous learning, enabling your employees, and all that. The way I look at it, the ROI from the kind of investments that we are making. So one of the examples that I've already talked about is the retention benefits, right? So if you create this culture of continuous learning by investing into enabling your employees to continuously learn from digital, social, experiential means, what you are in turn doing is you are actually creating inspired employees, engaged employees. There are statistics which tell us that with that you can actually reduce your attrition rate. And I just talked about the example of 80,000 employees with a saving of 200 million per year. So that's just one use case. There are other statistics which talk about if you have inspired employees, that actually reflects into higher profits and revenue for the organization, right? That's another example. The other way I would look at it is the investment that you make in learning is actually reflected into higher productivity as well. So right, so there are all these different parameters which will help you build the business case for learning, and it is much greater than the kind of investments you would be making in learning and continuous skilling.
And Vinod, as we wrap up this session, wouldn't you also say that organizations and executive leadership might look to their competitors to see what their competition is doing when it comes to talent?
Absolutely. And I mean, I always talk about it that talent is actually a board level and CXO discussion. For the organizations for which talent is their critical asset, it is the CEO and the board which actually talks about talent and the focus on talent development and retaining the talent. So definitely, if you look at your competitors, you would be inspired to make those investments into creating those experiences and enabling your talent and create the talent agility which you require in order to compete in the market.
Absolutely. Vinod, thank you so much. I know you and I could talk for days about this stuff. I so appreciate you and your time, and appreciate the audience and the Argyle team, but thank you so much for this session.
Thank you so much, Trish. It was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you both again. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this wonderful fireside chat. This discussion, along with all of today's sessions, will be available on demand. And our next two sessions will begin after a short break on track 1, Data Science, Strategy, and Leadership, and track 2, Insights and Applications. Those begin at 1:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, we just want to invite you to connect with other data experts in our event lounge today. The lounge is accessible from the main page. I hope to see you there. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.